Hello, everyone. I apologize for the late start. My start time is usually dependent upon what's going on in our house here, so sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get the kids out of the house. Hi, Matt. Nice to see you. I am frazzled, as I often am even on the weekends. Most people kind of relax on the weekends, and I've got so much going on. And we just started homeschooling officially. We had our homeschool co-op on Friday, and I teach 2 classes there, and then we started dance yesterday, and then baseball yesterday, and soccer today, and so it's all that stuff. And I've got a bunch of things I have to get done this weekend for my classes and things like that. So yeah, but thank you for asking. Just a bit frazzled, just a bit busy. I have a feeling my dog is going to jump on the couch and just get drunk. All right, so looks as though Matt, you're the only one here, so you have my undivided attention, at least for a little bit. What are your questions? Oh, hi, Raul. Nice to see you. We need more of our peeps. They'll come. They'll come. I'm just a little bit late starting, so probably didn't get the notification. Sorry. Don't knock over my lights. No, no, no. This is what she's not supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be doing that. Hi. Oh, here comes. Yeah. Oh, hello, everyone. Please say hello. So this is Harley. She's 10 months. She's a very snuggly girl. So yeah, please say hello. Let me know where you're from, and let me know what your questions are. I have a webinar that I'm going to be watching with Ken Bozeman, Professor Ken Bozeman. Some of you may know who he is from his books, Kinesthetic Vocal, Kinesthetic Voice, Practical Vocal Acoustics and Kinesthetic Vocal Pedagogy. I think that's what it is. In any case, yeah, so he's going to be doing a webinar that I'm going to be attending at 5 o'clock today. She does this on my live streams with SingWise Academy too. If I don't lock her out of the room, I think I may need to get somebody to lock her out of the room. Kaya, can you do me a favor, please, love? Can you take Harley and gate her out of this room, please? Thank you. Well, go offer her a treat. Yeah, go get a treat. You're gonna go for my lights, aren't you? Go get it. Call her again. Sorry about that, guys. You're from North Texas, Vaughn. Nice to see you. Raul. Oh, yes, please. Do start asking questions. Yeah, I'm kind of killing time waiting for the questions to roll in. So I'm trying to figure out what to do with my dog. Don't forget to gate her off. All right, so what questions do we have today? Oh, hi, Janet. Nice to see you. For those of you who are not familiar with how this works, you can see Janet. This is Janet 2A. She has a little wrench, a little blue wrench by her name. She is our moderator here for the live stream. Her job really is just to help make sure that we don't get any kind of inappropriate comments and things going. I'm a little nervous that vocal teachers are trying to steer me away from singing bass. Is that the intention? No, I know, Matt, we've had lots of discussions both here and on Dr. Dan's Voice Essentials about. I'm so sorry. I might have to excuse myself in a second and take my little beast away. All right. I'm so sorry, guys. Yeah, so I know you've had these discussions that I don't think it's that people are trying to steer you away from bass. What we're trying to do is we're trying to help you find your voice. We're trying to find you. I mentioned this, before, that it's kind of like trying to help you find your neighborhood being sort of the area of your range where your voice feels most at home. So it's like walking through a bunch of neighborhoods and trying to figure out where your voice wants to live. And that's the really important thing, because it gives you I think, more information about your voice, and it helps you to make better choices with regards to repertoire. And it's not that people are trying to pigeonhole you, But if you do wish to sing classical music, at some point you need to come up with some sort of classification to know which repertoire is right. But it's not that we necessarily have to make that decision right now. We don't necessarily have to say, okay, I'm not a bass, or I am a bass, or what have you, and then make that decision very firmly and then just stick with it. When you are still training your voice, there are still technical things that you have to work through, and there's a danger in prematurely classifying the voice. So if you classify too early without having developed certain technical skills, then you're going to be limiting yourself and risking being classified, or put in the wrong voice type or classification. So it's not that people, I think, are trying to steer you away from it. We're just saying, don't resign yourself to being a low male voice when you may not be, and you may be. But I know you just got a new singing teacher that you just started with, and I know you've had conversations with me and Dr. Dan about that. And again, I think we're trying to actually help you find your voice, not tell you what you can't be. If that makes sense, we're trying to tell you what you can be instead of what you can't be. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that helps. I think you understand now. Let's see. I can reach my head voice now, but it sounds raspy sometimes. How do I stop that? I don't know how to pronounce is it Trigus Pereira? So, welcome. I don't think I've seen your name before, so welcome. It depends on the reason why your voice is raspy. Oftentimes I hear rasp in voices, unintentional rasp in the higher range, when there is some vocal hyperfunction where the singer is trying to squeeze too much. What will happen is sometimes the vocal folds will have difficulty lining up properly and closing, adducting fully. Even though you'd think that the squeeze would be kind of helping the compression and bringing the vocal folds together, that's not always the case. Sometimes it actually causes imbalances that negatively impact the glottal closure mechanism. So I don't know why your voice sounds raspy. It could be that you're pushing too much air through. You're trying to force too much air. It could be that you've got that vocal hyperfunction. You're squeezing maybe right above the vocal folds. There are so many different reasons why you might have a little bit of like a rattle or rasp inside the voice. Let's see. Oh, Mike, nice to see you. Nice to see you. Great to be back in contact. I haven't been singing at all for a few months. Can't believe loss of range on top end. Is that normal? Yeah, it's one of those things. I think you don't use it, you lose it. I really do think so. But I think if you've had it, it's one of those things that you can usually get back pretty quickly. So I always just tell students that even if you're not singing a lot, even if you're not singing in that range a lot, always make sure that you spend a little bit of time up there, even if it's just a few sirens or just some sort of quick arpeggiated pattern or something to that effect. Just make sure that you're going just up there and going down to the bottom. You're covering your full range, keeping the voice flexible, keeping it supple, and then it may not improve significantly, just kind of venturing up there a little bit, but it will prevent it from kind of going backwards and into that sort of atrophy kind of state that often happens for singers when they're not using their voice as much. Let's see, Raul. I think I made muscle tension. Hey, you know what? I forgot. I always forget to I had it on top chat again. So I'm going to go back before I get too far down here, make sure that I didn't miss anything. Oh, I don't think I missed anything. That's good. Excuse me, Saray. Can you please take her off, offer her a treat, and then gate her off? I was supposed to do it.
Can I go first? You guys after.
Yeah. Make sure you gate her off in the other room too, please. Both gates. Thank you. Sorry. Dog troubles. I'm afraid she's just going to knock things over here and be very distracting. All right. I think I've had muscle tension dysphonia for about more than 7 years. How do I know if this is true? I have a scheduled appointment soon, by the way. Okay, that's perfect. I am not a speech language pathologist. I am not an ENT. I can't diagnose you. Excuse me. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to go see somebody who does specialize in the voice, who can scope you and have a discussion with you about your symptoms and what's going on. And then you can work with a singing teacher, a speech language pathologist, whomever your doctor prescribes or suggests. And from there, you can work on the technical aspects of your voice use that are causing that muscle tension dysphonia, how to find that release in the voice. And yeah, but that's the best thing to do is just get a professional, a medical professional preferably, to look at you and diagnose that. And then from there, I think, I won't say it's an easy fix, but once you have a diagnosis, once you know what's going on, there are definitely protocols in place for treating those symptoms and for helping you improve your voice use. So there's hope. So even if it's been something that's going on for 7 years, excuse me, it is something that is fixable. It's something that is correctable in your technique. You just need to have the right voice professionals diagnosing you and helping you work through those technical things. Let's see, Startista. Welcome. I don't think I've seen your name before either. Let's see. Every time I scroll, it just goes zoom right by. Hi there. I have a very airy mixed voice because I'm a young girl. I don't know how young you are, but I can bridge my gap, but I have to push to create the stronger sound. How do I get a stronger mix without hurting myself? Again, it's one of those things that's really hard if I haven't heard you sing, because sometimes I think what often happens is we have an idea of what we think is going on with our voices, or we're aware of the symptoms, but a given symptom can have a number of different causes or possible causes, and I think you need a voice professional to listen to you and figure out exactly which is the right path to take in terms of helping you and training you. But generally speaking, if your mixed voice is not very strong, I don't know if you're thinking like, sorry, my allergies are really annoying today. I'm like swallowing. I apologize. All right. So if you're saying that you're trying to push to create a stronger sound, I suspect that you're trying to stay in like a chest mix. So you want it to be a heavier mix. So some of the exercises that I do in just developing mix is just helping the singer find a consistent compression from lower to higher notes. When I say consistent, I don't mean that you can't use different types of compression going up, but there's this feeling of, the compression, even though the vocal folds are thinning, we're not suddenly releasing the compression, for example, as we go higher. So just that, that staccato or mezzo staccato hum on that major triad. And it can't be a hum underneath it. Like you can't, well, you can, but you don't want to be letting out air before you start the sound. So you went almost like I always describe it as like you've seen something exciting or you smelled something really yummy. It's that kind of energy that you need in your sound. And when you do this, you want the feeling of, almost like I always say, the feeling of the voice almost like it's emanating from here, even though it's not. I always feel it like really strongly up here and behind the upper front teeth. You don't want the feeling of the pushing from the throat. That really gripping, kind of grunting like posture. As if you start moving up the scale with that going on there, you're going to overcompress, you're going to use too much muscle, too much force, you're not going to allow the vocal folds to thin properly as you move higher, and you're just going to be dragging up excess weight. And even if you want a strong sound, there's still a balance that you need to achieve. There's still, as you get higher in the scale, you still need to allow for some stretching and thinning for pitch. So in that case, if you do the that's just terrible. my my vocal folds are just so gunky right now. But doing that as you go higher, that it's still in there. You just want this really light, airy sound, which a lot of singers switch to. They flip to when they're moving up into, an M2, let's say, moving up into like a head mix. They tend to kind of like release the compression, and they get this airiness in the sound. Sorry, I'm all over. I'm so distracted right now with things. So yeah, to get a stronger mix, I would work on that little bit of compression. And when you're doing that, you're not digging into it. You want the same feeling of that same energy as you move up. Mm, and then you can move from that and you sustain that note for a little bit, and then and then you would move up the scale like that. Oh, Trigus, you're very welcome. I might need to remember to keep moving along because I always take forever. Just not very articulate. All right, Vaughn, let's see. I have a student that's working on developing her chest voice, and she's concerned because now she has some air coming out of her nose. What might this be, and what are some exercises I can use to help her? Again, don't know what's going on, but it's possible that it might be something like forced nasality, where there's the tongue might be too high, or there's so much breath pressure coming from beneath that we tend to sometimes open up that side branch. So when I'm working on developing chest voice in singers, I love to use nasal consonants, even though I know you're saying that air is kind of filtering out through the nose. It's amazing sometimes what can trigger velar elevation after ma ma ma, when you bring that like a mi na getting that feeling of nice compression first of all. Even though the nasal port is open, it can actually, yeah, it doesn't seem counterintuitive, right, to open up the nasal port, but I find that nasal resonance is really good for kind of grounding, especially if you focus on that feeling of things being kind of like resonant here and not pushing from the throat. I would also use things with like hard, like plosives, like hard k, 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 or g g, ga 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 ga, because the plosives, in order to create them, you have to close off the nasal port. You can't. Plosives require a buildup of air pressure behind the closure, and if you're not closing off that nasal port completely, you're not going to get that air pressure build up. And then when you can't get the air pressure build up, then you're not actually making the sound properly. So that's another thing that you can do, is just using more of like a kiki kaka. Sounds real terrible. Just in major triads, small scales, 5-note scales, just any. It doesn't really matter what kind of pattern it is. But yes, plosives, and I would use nasal consonants. And then just, I was going to say using twang, but that can backfire a little bit because some singers will tend to associate twang with nasality. And we don't really want to be going there, but just making sure that the singer's not pushing the throat or weighing the voice down too much or pushing too much air, because that's going to often cause that nasality to come into place. It's possible, dog hair flying around. It's possible that he or she, is it a she? I didn't see. Yeah, she's. Um, it's possible that she may not be feeling a strong sense of resonance. A lot of singers, especially female singers, do not feel a strong sense of resonance down lower in the range. And so what they may end up doing is adding nasality so that they can feel that sense of resonance and buzz. In which case, that's something you kind of address from here, is having her learn to hear her voice differently, learning to, feel the resonance, feel the sensations, even though they might be more subtler, feel them differently and become more kinesthetically aware of those sensations, because she may be, again, forcing to try to create more sound. I know for somebody like myself, I am a lighter voice, and if I try to force in my lower range, it does not feel good. It doesn't sound good. But if I do add a little bit of twang into my lower range, I can feel that sense of resonance and I stop pushing. So it may be that your student is actually doing that. Something similar to that is filtering some resonance out through the nose to try to compensate for that lack of strong sense of resonance, and wanting to feel it here. So yeah, you kind of just get to the bottom of what you think is going on or what she feels is going on, and then use your plosives, use your nasal consonants. Don't be afraid of them. They can be really effective even in dealing with nasality. Excuse me. I guess the reason why I'm steering myself away from my high voice is because my parents and others have told me my high voice doesn't sound good, and I want to sound good. Well, see, Matt, again, this goes back to the theme that we need to develop our range in its entirety. And oftentimes what happens is singers don't sound good in the upper range because they just don't use it as much, right? So if you're not practicing it, if you're not developing, if you're not focusing enough on it, then it's not going to sound good. It's just not going to be developed like your lower and middle part of your ranges are. Um, but and I know we've talked about this too, that you don't want to steer away from it. While you may not live in that neighborhood of, let's say, the tenor neighborhood, you may not live there, but that doesn't mean that you don't go visit. So you want to make sure that you are stretching your voice. You want to make sure that you're working all parts of your range every single time that you're practicing. Even if it's only for a minute or two, going up there, doing some sirens, some simple exercises up there, and then going back down, that's fine. But you want to make sure that you don't neglect it, because if you do, you will lose it and it will never get more developed. And you just want to be, cautious in developing it. You just want to make sure that you never feel discomfort, you never feel pain moving up into the higher range. If you do, then there's something a little off with your technique, and that's where you have a new singing teacher, I know. So that's where you want to be consulting with that singing teacher and asking her, what pitches, talking to her about, where it starts to feel uncomfortable in your range if she can't hear that already, and then having her help you work through the technical things that are causing things to feel not right. I believe that every singer is capable of singing probably much higher than he or she imagines. Again, doesn't necessarily mean that that singer is going to live in that range. But I believe that even lower voiced males should have access to their head voices. They should have access to the higher parts of their ranges, even if they don't sing there a lot. And it should feel comfortable. It should feel efficient. It may not be, again, where they feel like comfortable performing, but it shouldn't feel uncomfortable or painful. And that's really, really important. So don't steer away from it. And again, I feel like you're just kind of newly training. Excuse me. Oh, stupid allergies. Yeah, so you want to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a box. You don't want to be doing that. Just really be open to the possibility of exploring all parts of your range. And then when your teacher assigns you repertoire, just trust her. Just trust that she's picking something that she feels is going to kind of meet you where you're at. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be where you stay, right? You're just kind of visiting this, seeing how does it fit? Does it feel like home? Do I like how my voice sounds here? Does it feel good? And then she might have you try something else. How does this one feel? Maybe it's in a slightly lower or higher tessitura. And that's the important thing you need to do. You're just in this time of this season of exploration with your voice, and you need to be open to that, open to trying different things. And at some point, your body will tell you. I really believe that our bodies tell us if we're listening to them, when we're singing in the right tessitura, in the right area of our ranges. They will feel more energized. They won't feel as fatigued, and so forth. So yeah, just take it all in stride right now, and don't stress too much about voice type. Don't stress too much about how things sound. How do they feel? And then spend the time actually working on developing them. Excuse me. Excuse me. I know I shouldn't be clearing my throat. Following from going through range, keeping voice flexible. I like doing puffy cheek sirens up and down. Oh yeah, some people like to do though, where you're puffing up your cheeks to do that. Yeah, if it works for you, then go for it. Michael Freeman, I watched your tongue release exercises. How should I think about tongue exercises? I think I get tension. It really depends on the person. Like some singers, some singing teachers really don't like the idea of focusing directly on the tongue. I am not one of those teachers, even though I know that. Oh my gosh, dog hair. I just like. Oh, sorry. I'm like ADHD or something these days. So I know a lot of teachers will say, well, we need to address the breath, for example, because oftentimes, and it's true, oftentimes when the breath is imbalanced and the singer's not managing his or her breath appropriately, then we start supporting the tone up here throat muscles, with the tongue muscles, with the jaw. It is absolutely true. And I think that there is some validity, I guess, in looking at how we're managing our breath and seeing if that is, affecting, negatively impacting things. Because, if our breath is not managed correctly, it will have a snowball effect going up. So it's absolutely true. But I have, I think, 6 videos on managing tongue tension because I do think that it is something that can be addressed concurrently at the same time as addressing other aspects of technique, including breath management. So with tongue tension, I would say, like, if you're experiencing tongue tension right now, I would say one of the things you can do is start by stretching. The last time I did this, I got lipstick all over my tongue, or my chin. Sorry, not my tongue. But, doing those, long, stretchy, I'm sure I have on there. Long stretching, I would go for longer than that. I'm just, my chin. So stretching your tongue out. And also massaging. I'm not going to do that because I was just petting a dog and it'll probably taste terrible. But, pinching your tongue between your thumb and your pointer finger and going back as far as you can and sliding that forward. It's going to stretch those really long muscles on the sides of the tongue. So starting with that, I have a video that involves several stretches and massages for the tongue. But then I do vocalises, vocal exercises with students in which they put the tongue in the at rest position, which lines the roof of the mouth, for example, and it helps them keep the tongue from tensing and pulling back when they have a sense of where the tongue should be. So, you're putting your tongue along there, so now you have a sense of, okay, my tongue has a place to be, it has a position to be in. I also do the same thing. My favorite one really is just the biting down, like letting your tongue spread out over top of the lower molars and then gently biting down, as long as you're not forcing the lower jaw forward. And then exercising on that. And when you do that, what it's doing is it's just telling the tongue to stay fat and wide. It's just training a different response in that tongue. And if you have an incredible amount of tongue root tension, you will feel the tongue fighting you. It will fight you like a tug of war. It will pull, it'll yank, it'll feel more tense. You'll feel this sense of almost like sometimes a burning sensation in behind. But because you're preventing it from retracting and pulling back, you'll start to notice that over time, the tongue will start to resist that temptation, and it'll start to develop new muscle memory and new responses. And then you can work on the breath while you're at it at the same time. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I do with all my students when they're struggling with tongue root tension. Sometimes they don't even register the tension, they don't feel it, but I can hear it. I can hear it in their voices, and they're wondering why they're struggling, switching between the registers, for example. Well, sometimes it's because they're dealing with tongue retention that they're sort of undiagnosed, that they're not aware of. And so I will do exercises through the passaggio, and it's amazing to see what happens when the tongue root starts to release. All of a sudden, they're singing pitches that they couldn't sing before. They're singing without the break anymore in their voices between the registers and things like that. So I think it is important that we even we both directly and indirectly deal with tongue root tension. It's kind of like, it's like the root of all evil when it comes to singing, in my view. So many of us have tongue tension. So many of us. All right, let's see. Raul, I've got a significant loss of range. I'm basically a male soprano from what my teachers say, but pain hasn't allowed me to access my range. It's actually too short, and I don't have much stamina. Yeah, that sounds to me, I can't remember what you asked earlier, but that sounds to me like there is something definitely like off with your technique in the upper range. If you don't have the stamina, that sounds like a vocal fatigue issue possibly. And again, I'm not diagnosing you. I am not qualified to do that, especially in a live stream. But there is definitely something. If you notice that you've lost range, and if you've noticed that you fatigue more readily, you lose your stamina, that says to me that there's something like, muscle tension dysphonia, something where your muscles are just hyper functional. They're just working too hard or too much, or they're engaging too many muscles for the given vocal task. And so that's where you really need your teacher to work with you, and you need somebody to diagnose that. You need a laryngologist or an ENT or a speech language pathologist, somebody who can actually scope you and get a feel for how your muscles are responding to certain phonatory tasks, and then also to be able to listen to you, which I can't do. I don't have the benefit of that right here. To find out exactly what's going on, and to assess the sort of aeromechanical aspects of how you use your voice. And then from there, you can come up with some sort of plan of action in terms of treatment and working through the technical things. So yeah, that sounds to me like there's something going on that you just need to address with a professional. Tragus, what exercises can I do to prevent vocal hyperfunction happening in head voice? Thank you. You're very welcome. I would say if you're dealing with like true vocal hyperfunction, I would say doing things like straw work, straw phonation would be really beneficial. I have a video on that if you just look up straw phonation or straw exercises or something to that effect with SingWise there. But I mean, you'll also find several other videos on the topic, and you're just basically phonating into a straw. So you're putting a seal around that, so all the air and the resonance are filtering out through the nose. And you can do this into a cup of water. Just stick it about half an inch to an inch into the water, not all the way to the bottom, and don't fill it up too full because it'll just create too much resistance sometimes for a singer. So that I find is one of the most beneficial things to do is any kind of semi-occluded vocal tract exercise, but start with the straw and see how you handle that. What's going to happen is essentially, I don't have a straw, it's over the piano, but essentially you're elongating the vocal tract. So when you've got the straw in your mouth, your vocal tract is no longer ending at the mouth. It's kind of like it's ending at the end of the straw. So however long that straw is. And when you do that, that kind of just changes how the breath is used. It changes the resonance properties of the vocal tract a little bit. And because the opening is so small, it's called semi-occluded for a reason. It's partially or half closed. You're going to get a little bit of what we call a positive back pressure in behind that partial closure at the mouth. And when you raise that pressure in the supraglottal spaces, so the spaces above the closed or approximated vocal folds, it starts to come a little bit closer to the pressures beneath. And when you start to have pressures that are similar on both sides, the vocal folds have a chance to kind of release a little bit, and they can operate more efficiently, and they kind of square up better instead of like becoming really pressed and overly muscular in their approach to phonation, or just kind of touching the thin edges of the vocal folds like we do in like falsetto or something. So I have a lot of vocal fry in my voice today. All right. So yeah, I would say anything, just sirens, any kind of scales. I generally keep the scales short. I don't usually go more than like a 5-note scale. But definitely sirens are a possibility. And see how you do with that. See how that works. Like, don't expect instant results, and it will feel weird. It'll feel very different probably from how you're using your voice when you're not singing into the straw. But I always recommend that a singer try that every day, a few times a day. Try just a few minutes of it. You don't need to go on and on for 20 minutes. But give it time, like give it a couple weeks before you start to notice a difference. And generally speaking, you will notice a difference. Oftentimes you'll notice an immediate difference, but not always. So you give yourself a week or two and see how you do with that. Yeah, if it's hyperfunction, that's mostly what I would do. And I would also do things like like ooh, just the really like tiny ooh sound, ooh, humming, ng, any of those, as long as you're able to do it without gripping and squeezing and such. If you're not, then yeah, then I would go with the straw work and see how you do with that. I can't really, oh, this is, okay, I can't really get comfortably past F5. Yeah, how much do you sing in that range, though? I know you said you're a higher voiced singer, so just wondering. Yeah, there's something going on if you've lost it. Whenever there's any kind of a change, like I'll say a radical change in your range, in your voice quality, in how things feel, it's usually a sign that something is going askew, going off with your technique. whether it's your speaking technique or your singing technique, that's the time when you seek professional help. That's the time when you say, okay, I need to get to the bottom of this and figure out why I'm experiencing this particular loss of range or whatever it might be. I think it's really important that you figure out what's going on, because we don't just lose our range if we're using it properly. Nikolai, how far do you advise your students to take their chest voice M2 in terms of pitch? Where should one transition to head voice or M2? I don't really advise specifically in terms of pitches, but usually, because I will have students extending their M1 range. I will do that. We will do it in a very twangy, mixy way initially to make sure that it's healthy. We will do things like that little mezzo staccato or staccato humming to help them find the right balance. And they can stay in chest voice doing that, but it will help them to avoid sort of digging in. My main concern with that is just that how are they approaching chest voice as it goes up higher? How much are they like gripping? How much are they forcing? If chest voice is just getting loud, like M1 is getting louder and louder and louder and louder, increasingly strident as they move higher, then they're not handling that very well. So I will usually have them stop at a certain point where when I start to hear those imbalances, and it's not a permanent stopping point, but it's definitely like, okay, for right now, for today, this is where we're going to stop because it's starting to sound not so balanced. It's starting to sound pushed or strained or forced. Um, but I wouldn't necessarily have them stop at a given pitch and say, here is your absolute stopping point for chest voice, and never go above this in chest voice. I would never like limit them that way. Um, but yeah, so we listen and feel. And I think if you listen and feel, your body and your voice will tell you where it's comfortable and where it should be, where you should be stopping. If it just doesn't, definitely need soundproofing in this room. I don't know if you guys heard that big truck go by. But yeah, so I guess just listen to your voice, and if you're going to develop, like, you learn to carry chest voice up, there are a lot of different healthier and unhealthier ways that you can do that. So I would just be, personally, I know some people don't agree with me, but I would tread lightly and carefully and cautiously with it, and I would just make sure that you pay attention to any little red flags that you're seeing or hearing in your voice as you move higher. Watch what's happening with the neck muscles. Watch the behavior of your head as you move up. Watch what's happening with the jaw. How's your tongue feel? How's your jaw feel? What's going on with the breath? What are you hearing? Does it sound squeezed, forced, strained? Does it feel not so right? Is it getting louder and louder and louder? And do you have any control over dynamics whatsoever? So these are the things that when I'm working with a student, I'd be listening for and watching for. And so you can do the same thing in training your voice, is just make sure that you, if you're going to extend it, that you're doing it in a way that makes sense and is healthy for your voice. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Melissa Cross, but she has this little rainbow exercise that I know I've demonstrated before. And if I try to do it here, my mic's going to cut out. But where you just have like 3 rainbows, and then you go higher and you go longer with each rainbow, and then you kind of, the top one you can stop if you like. I usually have my student kind of stop, then go back down the rainbow. But she does it on a whoa, and it's a really good way of kind of stretching the chest voice and locking into what would be a yell resonance coupling into that first formant, second harmonic coupling. Whoa, 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 oh! It's really comfortable, really easy, and then you can make that go higher at some point too when you're comfortable with that. But I don't know if you can hear that because I know my mic cuts out. I need an external mic for this. But when I do that, I don't dig in as hard as I can. I kind of lock into that resonance coupling where I'm technically in a yell, but I'm not pushing as loud as I possibly can go. And I think that's a really important thing when we're developing chest voices, not to always just kind of go full throttle, full speed ahead. Matt, let's see. Do I want to sing Music of the Night and bring him home? Sure, but I'm afraid it won't sound good again. And Matt, it may not right now, but you're really just starting out with a singing teacher too. And so right now, maybe you don't want to sing those. That's fine. And again, trust your singing teacher to help you pick repertoire that meets your voice where it is right now, so that you won't feel discouraged, so that you'll be like, wow, I like singing. I enjoy this music. I feel comfortable singing it. I sound good singing it. That's going to ultimately sound better to you and to an audience, is when you're singing where you should be in your range, where your voice is most developed, where it's most comfortable. And then it's going to encourage you. It's not going to leave you feeling so discouraged that you want to quit because, oh, I sound terrible, I can't sing that. Well, yeah, because you're singing in an area of your range where maybe you haven't fully developed your technique yet. So it's like, I guess delayed gratification in some ways, where so many of us struggle with that, where we want it all, we want it now. And that's not necessarily the best way to approach voice training and picking your repertoire. I've seen so many singers, they hear a song that they really like and they just go for it, even though their technique is not there yet. And I get it, because there are so many songs that, I might like to sing, but my technique might not be there yet. And I have to find something, an alternative song that maybe is in a lower tessitura, or maybe that doesn't require as much heavy mixing or belting or something to that effect. Doesn't mean that I'm stopping here. Doesn't mean that I'm resigning myself to singing lower or to belting less. No. It just means that right here, right now, this is where I'm at. And you just need to kind of respect your voice, I think, and understand that this is a process. This is a journey that you're on. It's not like, you don't expect to be like finished right now. You're just kind of starting out. So be patient. Be patient with your voice, and trust that, yeah, your teacher will guide you and help you pick the right repertoire with you. Let's see, Rashid for Legend. Hi, I don't think I've seen you either. So welcome, and thanks for asking your question. How can I get to the point where I can dance and sing? I love when people ask me this question because I can't dance much. All right, I move around a little and I start panting while trying to breathe and sing a little. Yeah, I think that you and me both. So, yeah, I mean, I move around on stage, but to actually dance is to take that to a whole different level. So I think obviously you need to be in good physical shape to be able to do that, because it requires a lot of stamina. But I think what you can do is, because I know, if you're on, even if you're on stage and you're not dancing, but you're acting, for example, and you're moving around and such, there are, these movements of your body that, require your breath management musculature, for example, to make rapid adjustments so that you can still keep a steady tone even though you're quickly moving, right? It's the same thing with dance. So I would say you kind of build up to that, you work up to that, learn to be able to, maybe walk around in your room, for example, as you're singing, and then maybe try something like singing going up and down the stairs or walking up and down the stairs, right? Something where it's like your body's having to work a little bit harder than it has to when you're just standing still and practicing, and then build up to that. Maybe go for a walk out on the street and sing. I don't know if you're comfortable doing that if you live in the country at all. But maybe just find ways to build up the stamina, build up the ability to move more, and to build that cardio. Yeah, I mean, that's really all I can recommend, is just kind of like anything else, just start small and keep challenging yourself. But yeah, Statista, thank you. I'll do that daily. Oh, the straw phonation, I think I was saying right. Good. All right. Yeah, let me know. Please, like, let me know. Message me here on the video, even if you go to the video here. Message me on the SingWise Facebook page. Try to respond promptly, but I don't always get notifications. There's something going on with Facebook lately. But I would love to hear an update. I'd love to hear how you're doing with this in another week or two. Let me know. Let's see, Matt. Used to be second nature to sing those songs, but it's not that way anymore. And I mean, your voice. See, I think you told me your age before, but our voice is mature. Generally speaking, a lower voice, a bass baritone, lower baritone, that voice will tend to mature a little bit later, oftentimes into the 30s, a little bit later. So it could very well be that, you know, your voice has just been kind of over the course of the last couple decades kind of settling into, you know, or decade, I guess, settling into what it wants to be. So I don't know that for sure, really. I know I've heard a couple snippets of your singing before, so, but it doesn't really give me enough to really get a good feel for what your voice, where it wants to sit. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I think we sometimes don't think about is the fact that our voices do change. They do reach a level of maturation where they'll kind of stay for a few decades, usually speaking, and then they'll change again as we start to go through, you know, as we age. For women, as we go through perimenopause and menopause, we'll experience real hormone, like, you know, hormonal. The hormones will affect real change physiologically, and so we need to learn to be able to adapt, adjust to that, and adjust our expectations sometimes of what we were able to what we're able to sing. So you're on the other end of that, where your voice is probably just kind of finding itself. It's maturing. It's settling into where it will be for the next little while, next several decades. So yeah, it's possible. It's possible that that's all you're experiencing. It's also possible that through not having been working with a singing teacher up until recently, that, you know, there are things that you've done technically in trying to train your own voice that maybe have been counterproductive. I don't know, but yeah, just work with your teacher for a while, see how things go, see how things progress, and I think over time, as you work through your technique with her, I think you'll start to find your voice. I think you'll start to find who you are and what your voice, you know, wants to be in that neighborhood where it wants to live. So just be patient. Um, Hi, Cockney Rebel. Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. Everybody's saying hello. Good. Yes, please do say hello to each other. Please check for a question I asked in your video, Vocal Twang 1.5. Oh, yes, Rosanna's friend. Oh, nice to see you join us. And have you joined us before for live streams? I know I've left comments before in videos, but I will look for that. Hopefully, I'll remember to do so. I have that thing at 5 o'clock today. Um, yeah, yeah. You could always ask it again here. That's a good point, Janet. Um, my question. All right, I'm going to move along because I've only got a few minutes left here before I have to go. So my question is, can a chest infection and vicious cough cause vocal nodules and permanently knack your voice? I always love your language. It's fun. So I think it can definitely, depending on how persistent the cough is, how aggressive the cough is, and and how long you've had this cough, it can definitely cause vocal nodules. Generally speaking, if it's a cough that lasts a few days, no, it's not going to cause nodules. It may exacerbate things that are already going on, but nodules take a while. They take a while to, generally speaking, to form. You will, if you're coughing, like you said, vicious coughing, so, you know, vicious aggressive coughing, you will tend to get inflammation. That will usually be the first, like redness, inflammation, that kind of thing first. And then I think it would have to be something that goes on and on and on for you to actually really develop some sort of vocal fold lesion. So as in terms of permanent, no. So I mean, some of you know that I got whooping cough last year, so pertussis, and so you actually heard me working through some of my voice difficulties related to that, and I had this aggressive coughing. If you've ever had pertussis, you know that it's it's like you cough so hard that you almost vomit or do vomit, and it will go on for months on end. It's supposed to only go on, like they say, a 100-day cough, but I definitely had issues with vocal fold swelling that persisted. So, but you know, I don't think it's necessarily a permanent thing by any means. My voice is back, my range is back, my voice is as strong as it was, if not stronger. And you know, things like vocal nodules, people recover from them. I have a student right now who is, you know, who's been working with me just mostly on voice. Haven't been doing a lot of singing, and she just got a few days ago. Actually, she just messaged me to tell me that the doctor has confirmed that her nodes are gone. So they're not permanent. We can definitely, if we keep misusing and abusing our voices, we can definitely cause permanent damage. But for the most part, most people recover just fine from things like that. But it may take some time. It may take months. I know for me, when I've had things like bronchitis in the past, I used to get a lot of bronchitis. You talk about chest infection. It would last months. Like my voice would, I'd have difficulties for maybe 6, 8 weeks, even sometimes with the swelling. And then even once the swelling was gone, I'd notice that my range didn't like just kind of come right back immediately. So just be patient. Is there a book or online training you would recommend? Yeah, there's lots of stuff that I would recommend, but if you could give me more information about what you're looking for, I can kind of tailor that to your needs. If you're just looking for general guidance and general ideas about voice, I always recommend Richard Miller's Solutions for Singers as kind of a starter book because it's in this like Q&A format, and he touches upon everything from breath to phonation to articulation to art aspects of artistry and performance. And I just think it's really good because it's my kids are yelling at each other. It's unlike some other books out there, some pedagogy books out there, including Miller's own Structure of Singing, which I feel is um, a lot more detailed with the anatomy and physiology. This kind of, I feel like it just covers just what you need. It just tells you just enough about those aspects of singing or the voice or how it's structured to help you make more sense of things and to help you along, but it's not so much that usually it would go right over your head. So I think that's a good place to start. But yeah, let me know specifically what you're thinking. Like, there are lots of books that are more practical. I mean, that has exercises in there, but there are other books like The Vocal Athlete, like for hybrid singers, that have like, well, I think they have CDs, or they also have like online tracks that you can use for the exercises and such. Yeah, I'm trying to think what would be a training book. A lot of my books are like pedagogy, so yeah, I don't know. Feel free to message me, and I'll think more about that, and let me know specifically what you're thinking and what you're interested in. Um, okay, it won't make sense. Okay, Rosanna's friend, I will look that up for you. So 1.5. Cockney Rebel, I mean, I always land up with bloody chest infections and vicious coughs, and it's never knackered me permanently yet, but can it? I mean, again, unless I think you've got scar tissue, unless like you do so much damage to your voice that you literally have scarring, I think you should recover okay. But honestly, I used to get a ton of like chest infections because I have like chronic bronchial asthma, and it was very severe growing up. I actually, when I was 12 years old, I ruptured one of my lungs in an asthma attack, and I flatlined. And I had air filling up all over my neck and head. It was very interesting. And I have scar tissue on my lung, not to do with the vocal folds, but I just, I had chronic infections all the time, like just like every time I had a cold, and I would get a cold, like I swear 3 weeks of the month I would have a cold, and it would just go straight into my chest, and there would be coughing, a lot of coughing, and then I learned to kind of fake the cough, just that, not bring the vocal folds together, just kind of when I get that tickly irritation and it's not a productive cough where I'm not loosening up mucus, I would just fake a cough. And then when I started doing that, I started getting much less vocal fold swelling. I didn't understand the test at the end of the video. Was it the nose pinching one? I think it was because that video was about twang and separating twang from nasality, right? So it's just, yeah. So you want, excuse me, wow, 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 wow. So hear how, like, when I pinch, the sound doesn't change at all, right? But if I'm going through my nose, wow, 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 wow. Hear how it goes when I pinch it? That's all it is. It's just kind of like if the sound changes, if it distorts when you pinch your nose, then you're filtering air through your nostrils, through your nasal cavities. So you just want, even though twang can sound wow, 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 it can sound nasalized. Wow. It's not, right? It just has, I think, because we tend to get those brighter um, harmonics in our sound, those higher harmonics represented in our tone, when we sing through the nose and when we sing in twang, we tend to kind of think that they're the same thing. So hopefully, I think that's what you were asking, if I recall correctly. So Matt, she said I can sing an E above middle C. That's great. Cockney Rebel, is there potential to cause serious damage, or will any damage done during the time of illness be pretty short-lived? Again, I think you'll probably have you may have months of recovery depending on how serious it is. That again is something I would talk to a doctor about, because I don't know, I can't tell you what's going on and the extent of the swelling or the damage if there has been any. So that's where you need to go. I think generally speaking, our voices are far more resilient than we give them credit for. um, they're delicate on one hand, and on the other hand, they will bounce back and they will heal. Our bodies have an incredible ability to heal themselves. So I think if you take good care of your voice, I mean, first of all, try to avoid getting sick by sleeping well and hydrating well and eating well, all that good stuff, washing your hands, all that good stuff. But when you do get sick, just making sure that you're limiting your voice use, for example, that, if you're dealing with vocal fold swelling, that you're not talking more than you need to talk. You don't necessarily need to be on complete voice rest, unless a doctor tells you need to be. But I think that's the other thing too, is oftentimes we tend to kind of push ourselves when we're sick, and it prolongs the illness, and it often makes it worse. So just take good care of yourself. E4, welcome to the club. Very bad. Matt, I think it might be E4. Oh, man, every time I try to scroll. All right, guys, I'm going to have to get going. That thing is starting. Hope I'm not irritating your body. No. Well, I know, Matt. We chat sometimes on Facebook, so you are always welcome to keep messaging me with your questions too. I don't mind at all. That's what I'm here for. Excuse me. Man, allergies are yucky. More like we've been doing it. I'm asthmatic. Yeah, so you're probably more prone. Asthmatics, generally speaking, are more prone to respiratory infections. Once my asthma got under control and I stopped having to use my inhaler in my mid-20s, I stopped getting sick. I stopped getting colds. I mean, I rarely get a cold. Obviously, I got pertussis last year. That's another thing altogether. It's an infectious disease. But I mean, even just generally colds, I seldom get colds anymore. But yeah, definitely having a respiratory illness like asthma will make you more prone. So yeah, the damage is pretty short-lived. And yeah, again, I don't know, but I've had lots of respiratory infections before, and it's generally like a little swelling. And the more gentle I am with my voice, the less I talk when I have the inflammation. The less aggressively I cough. So again, if it's just a tickle and it's almost like the nerves get irritated and that causes you to they give you that tickle sensation, but it's not productive. You're not expelling any mucus or anything to try to get that off the vocal folds of the lungs. Then you could fake the cough, and then you're not slamming the vocal folds together really, really hard with a cough or throat clear. I'm going to pass on another technique that I was taught. Sweet, lay on your back on the floor and practice singing like that. That'll force you to support. Yeah, actually, so the Alexander technique does that semi-supine position. And what I love about that is it allows you to kind of your back to sort of spread out, and can help you to find more, more focus here with the breath. Just, it's all about balance. You're going to feel so stupid doing it, but it does help. I find it hard to, because when you're lying on your back, because gravity in this case I think is kind of working against you a little bit. The visceral contents are kind of like the contents of the abdominal wall or abdominal cavity are spreading out. I find that it can actually it spreads out kind of in both directions. So I find sometimes I can actually put pressure on the diaphragm and make it more difficult for the diaphragm to lower. So I find that lying on the floor is great for light, easy singing, but not so much for really intense singing. And I also feel like it's like most of us, if we're belting, for example, we kind of need to anchor the body a little bit, and we use the body in different ways. And if you're overly relaxed lying down, then it can kind of work against you. But it depends on what you're doing. Yeah, well, my asthma is, I'd say, pretty much gone, which is amazing. So But it took me to like my mid-20s for that to happen, and so I'd say for the past 20 years, it's been pretty much gone, except for when I was pregnant with my fourth child. That was a long story, but everything went crazy with that. I love doggos. Also, when doing higher notes, should you use twang? Again, it depends on your technique, but I say yes. I say twang in general is a really healthy way of getting compression in the voice, and that brightness and ringing quality can help prevent us from, really pushing and such too. But yeah, the straw phonation thing is good. Singing through a drinking straw, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, blue bubbles. All right. Yes, I do teach Speed Ski 777. Yes, I do teach private lessons. I actually exciting because I'm going to be opening up my studio to local students for the first time in like 12 years um, in this fall. So that's kind of fun because typically I teach primarily online with, sometimes I have out of state students come in for intensives, sometimes week long intensives. But most of my students I never advertise locally. Most of my students are international or across the US or Canada. Um, Horizon. Oh, nice of you to join us. Yeah, I'm signing off now because I've got a thing, a little webinar that supposed to be doing. I'm not doing it. I'm attending. But Professor Ken Bozeman, is going to be doing that. So, bought it. It won't let me post it. Oh yeah, I don't think it lets you post links at all. So you don't clutter up the. Well, I don't think it's even so much clutter. I think it's because if you post a link, somebody's going to be clicking onto that, and in this case, it would still keep you on YouTube, but YouTube wants you to stay on YouTube. So if it's a link, an external link, someplace that's going to take you outside of YouTube, YouTube doesn't like that because they want people on there and they want people to stay. How does support feel like? Um, Hi, Karyn. How do you anchor when belting? Oh, um, I think that's a discussion for another time, to be honest with you, because I don't want to like just throw out some information and then have you kind of take it the wrong way, because I really do have to get going. I am trying to get together a few professionals who do a lot of teaching in belting, and I want to do like a roundtable discussion on the topic of belting and have like 5, 6 of us maybe weigh in on the subject of belting. And I think that will be really beneficial to hear about belting from different perspectives from people who sing in different styles. I've got somebody I've been in touch with who's down in Australia who teaches a lot of musical theater and works with professionals in the musical theater industry. Um, and a few others who teach it that I think would be really, really valuable resources for us. So I think that might be a better time for me to kind of talk more about it. But I definitely feel a sense of, my stance widens a little bit. And I feel a sense of just really connecting in here. I know that there are lots of different ways of, anchoring the face, anchoring the chest. Did you receive my email as well? It was about W months ago. I have no idea what 2 months ago. There you go. I do not know. Please resend it because sorry, stupid allergies. Yeah, please resend the email. Sometimes things get lost. Sometimes I don't get notifications, and sometimes I just get like bombarded with emails and things just I can't keep up with it all. So I apologize, but please do resend it. I'll be looking out for it. Oh, can you join the belting roundtable? I'd be honored. Are you? Let's see. Yeah. Well, get in touch with me if it's something that you teach and you feel really confident and good at, and get in touch with me and let me know. Get yourself a facial steamer and breathe in the hot. Yeah, yeah, that's always good too. All right, guys. I apologize if I missed anybody. I know I kind of rushed through this last little bit here. Oh, Matt, one last question. Matt, can you ask that? Your question about G1. Can you just ask that in a private message for me, please, on Facebook, and I'll get back to you later on tonight. I want to get going. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna go, and it was really great chatting with you guys, hanging out with you guys, and hopefully this was helpful. And let me know how else I can help you, how else I can guide you in your singing and such. So, all right, everybody, have a great afternoon or evening. Bye.